Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the SRC podcast. Joining me, Big M, as always, Double R, Rob Rees, and Bucky John Harris. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we?
All good, gents. All good, yeah?
Yeah, all good. How are we doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's nice to see you back, John. It's been lonely without you. Just dealing with that other guy in the corner. But no, it's good to have you back. And
I
what
know, and I would miss one of the week where I had 2 hour wins to talk about as well.
I know is incredible.
Oh.
We've gone past that, John. We've gone past it.
No, I know.
That doesn't matter anymore.
Like, even though they weren't playing this past weekend, we did mention them in every game, so don't you worry
Oh,
about
good.
that.
Good.
Okay, then. So
Wouldn't want the standards to slip.
we are now in the business end of the season. Teams are falling like flies. It is, of course, the end of season playoffs, and we started this past weekend with the wildcard round. 10th played 7th, and 8th played 9th. So we'll start off on the game that was televised on the Thursday night, which of course was Swansea travelling to Bridgend. Now, obviously, live coverage on S4C Click, and quite frankly, hell of a game.
It was.
That's all you
Cracker.
need to say. You know, it finished what 33-30.
Yeah.
In Bridgend's favour, and I'm going to start on my assessment to saying Swansea are probably they're going to be feeling this well into next season, because they should not have lost that game from the position they were in. They were like 16 points up in the second half.
30-14 at one point, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a hard one for those boys to take, not just now into the summer. I'll be honest, it's probably not until Christmas time, or even once they've got at least half a dozen games down them, before they can start forgetting about this properly. So, from the sounds of it, we've all watched it. John, you've been away for so long. Let's hear some words of wisdom.
Oh, I can't help you with that, but I can ramble for a bit. Yeah, I sort of saw it. I kind of had it on my phone when I was cooking food. And then after we had food, obviously the missus wasn't going to sit and watch a rugby game on a Thursday. So it was kind of on my phone next to me. So kind of glancing back and forth. But it was like you said, this was a really good game. And I think, Swansea are going to be really gutted with this one, because, as we said, 30 points to 14 up at one point. And when they scored that try to go 30-14 up, they were looking pretty in control as well, I thought. It's a strange one, because I didn't see Bridgend coming back to this. I was a bit late with my predictions this week, so I texted him over during the game, but I did text him over when it was 30-14 to Swansea, and I still picked Bridgend. So that does look a bit sus, but no, it was good. I really don't know how Bridgend got back into this the way they did, with three late tries to snatch it. They drive it more working towards the end. There's some very good set piece. The scrum started going, getting a bit on top as well, which is very good, because we've said that the forward was a little bit of a weakness all season with Bridgend, but they stepped up that second half, and especially the last quarter, to really get back into this and to score the winning try in the last minute. You could hear what it meant to the fans as well. The crowd was making some good noise on the night as well, which was really nice to hear.
Yeah, and
you could see what it meant to them all as well. So brilliant game for a neutral to watch. But Swansea, this is one that's really got away from them, because when you're 30 points to 14 up with, when did Bridgend, 12 minutes from time, Bridgend they first tried to get back into it, so you should be seeing that out from there. And Swansea have been in some decent form as well.
Yeah.
But Bridgend were coming off a cracking win against Llandovery too.
Yeah.
So fair play to Bridgend. It's going to get, as we all know, it's going to get tough now though in the in the playoffs with going away to these top 4 sides. But credit to Bridgend, they kept going and they kept going, and they got rewarded with a winning try. So
Yeah,
fair play to them.
So before I come to you, Rob, I'm going to help you out a bit. I have managed to catch up with the Lion tamer, Scott Baldwin himself. So, you're his word. So, going into the Swansea game, we spoke about how we knew it'd be the best version of Swansea this season, coming for a knockout game at the Brewery. He thinks they delivered that for the most part defensively. They got to the line, and pressured it well in the first half. I thought from our boys, to be fair, we played in the right areas. Yellow card cost us, but challenge at halftime was they defended our attack for 40 minutes. And we needed to keep going. We were probably 1 or 2 passes, one phase away from scoring or breaking them down. Challenge for the second half was, could we go out and do the same, replicate that level of performance and be that bit more accurate? I think you'd have seen in the second, you mentioned about it, we were 16 points behind and we stuck to the game plan and played in those right areas. Boys were brave and backed themselves with offloads, tried to get behind Swansea. And when they did get behind, it forced Swansea to give up penalties, which gave multiple more entries, which has been a strength of ours, especially late in games. 2 weeks in a row, got to credit the boys. They've stepped up, fully believing in each other, backed each other for the full 80 minutes. A reflection from the Llandovery game. It was an attacking opportunity we needed, and we needed to be clinical there. And we really flipped that over when we played Swansea. We needed to be resilient defensively. Late in the game, it was a midfield scrum. I think it was last but one play of the game. In extra time, Swansea go 2-2-2. Probably the hardest place to defend on the field, and I thought the boys defended brilliantly. And when we needed to stop them, we managed to stop them all, and that's been a weapon for them through the night. So, Rob, fair assessment from Scott, and what are your own thoughts?
Yeah, I think what you see from Scott there is mentioned about going those extra couple of sort of phases in attack. Is they changed it up and brought on double distribution. They brought Ben Bonnell on, but they didn't bring him on at 10. They left Luke Price on at sort of in that 10 jersey and sort of played Ben as the 12 then, sort of moved it around that way. So it's the way they've sort of swapped them around there rather than switching them out as quite cleverly, sort of picked up a weakness. Not in terms of what Swansea weren't doing or were doing, but what Scott has sort of analysed, seen, and reacted to. And that's probably a lot of credit to Scott and the coaching staff. They're a young coaching team, really. Obviously, quite a few Wales caps between them. But yeah, it's one of those ones Swansea will be absolutely kicking themselves, and ironically, because they didn't take a kick. I mean, with the clock coming up, yeah, it's painful. It's painful. I've had a senior member of the Welsh Rugby Union that I was speaking to early this week say, "Why didn't Swansea take the kick?" You're right in front of goals. As John alluded to, Bridgend set piece got stronger in that second half. It wasn't like that, Swansea were getting them all going or dominating a scrum. So they were kicking the touch and off penalty advantages. And you're thinking, take the 3. It's going to go to extra time. You give yourself all the chance. And in the end, Bridgend sort of defended it out, and that was that. And that's probably the most disappointing thing from a Swansea perspective, is it was there on a plate, not just because of the massive lead that they had, but because they had the chance at the end to just rectify, get back in the game. It's a bit like anything, and we all say as fans, as coaches, as spectators, if your side gets a couple of scores against them, you turn around and go, we need a next score. Just get a penalty to stem the sort of flow of momentum. And that's exactly what Swansea sort of needed. In this situation, it was less to stop momentum and sort of, you needed to cut it, cut it clean, get back in the game, would have levelled him up to 33 all. And this is Josh Phillips, who has the highest accuracy of any kicker in the league, other than Kieran Mika Pontypool. I think he's sitting at 78%, kicking a penalty from 8 yards out. Right in front of the posts. That's a guaranteed 3 points. We're not even talking hypothetically, is he going to kick this? So it's interesting on that front that Swansea didn't take the 3. I don't think Hugh Gustafsson has really, or anybody at Swansea has really given us an answer in terms of why that was the case. Was it on field? Was it something they thought they could just win? But yes, it was a fabulous game, and as you say, it was great to hear the crowd on S4C, because this is what Super Rugby Cymru is all about: competitive games, development time for the youngsters, those on the the pro tier fringe, developing that sort of bond with supporters that gets people into the game. And I've alluded to it a few times on social media in the past couple of weeks around certain sides have grown and certain sides are seeing that sort of impact off field. And yeah, this was, again, probably 2 weeks in a row from Bridgend, a perfect example of why the SRC is such a great advert and why it should be on mainstream TV, which obviously this weekend's game is.
Yeah. I do want to run back, though, that final minute, really, from Swansea. So they get that penalty in front of the post. And okay, you go for 3. Okay. They haven't called 3. They've backed their line out to try and, get over the line. They don't get over the line. They get a scrum ball. They then have the scrum, and they come within, what was it, a couple inches of the line. So penalty in the exact same spot, more or less the same spot where the scrum was. And they go back to the line out again. But okay, you've thrown the 3 points away. You tried the line out, it didn't work. You had a scrum which you came stupidly close to scoring from, and you didn't choose to go from that again. When you obviously you need to tie up the forwards when you got set piece, and that's obviously the main thing you do. A scrum does that better than a line out, personally, because you've got all 8 men tied in. So
yeah, you can attack off 2 sides as well, right? You can attack off 2 sides of a line out, but in reality, the scrum half is in the blind channel. The defensive peel is there, so that so the short side is gone. So you're right. I mean, other than the fact that the dominance wasn't there, if you're backing yourself, you back yourself in the scrum, which is more central. Not that they would have needed the conversion anyway. But you sort of back yourself to sort of attack either side. I mean, the likes of Cornelius, Houston have been really, really good in recent weeks. Matthew Aubrey's been one of their best players, if not their player of the season. Josh Phillips, they've all fantastic players on the field.
Template was good at scrum half as well. You did a strong game again.
Yeah, and it's you go with probably the weakest option. A tap and go would have benefited them more. Literally.
Yeah, I even thought that. Just if nothing else, just you're in the middle of the field.
Like,
have a tap and go, and then at least you've got options either side in the middle of the pitch. Because as long as you scored, it don't matter where you scored it. But it did seem like just take the 3 just to get it level. Yeah. You'll get the ball back then, and then try
exactly.
And if you need to try and if you want to try and get a winner, but at least level it up. So if it goes wrong, it might go to extra time at least.
Yeah.
So that is
a chance.
Yeah. That is officially Swansea out of the SRC. So you've kind of done it a bit for me, but there. So I want to have a little talk about some of their players who we've been impressed by this season, and especially the academy boys who we think might be looking to take that step up. We might be graduating from SRC, as I say. And you touched on Harry Houston and Ian Cornelius there, and I do have to commendate Houston. Every time he's played, he's been outstanding, and
he's a threat, isn't he?
He is a threat, and just like the winger down at Ebbw Vale, Harry Rees Weldon was it his debut this past weekend?
Yeah.
Harry Houston, he deserves an opportunity in a professional squad. That's just how good he's been. Ian Cornelius, obviously he's new, come over from Australia. I haven't seen a great deal of him. He looks to be a decent stock.
He's had a better last 4 or 5 months, being around the under-20s camp and playing for Swansea a lot more consistently this side of Christmas. Start of the season, he was a bit all over the place. They didn't really know where to play him, but he looks like his best position is definitely on the wing and not in midfield. He's had a couple of good games now against good opposition. Obviously came off the bench against Bridgend, but it was one of those where you look at it and go, Houston needs to step up, and I feel for him, because you look at the sort of the Osprey sort of strengths and weaknesses, and you're thinking is that where he's going to step up? But Swansea have had players, step up. I mean, Yestin stepped up basically last year after a fantastic year that, sort of the season before, they took him up mid-season onto the wing. So, that would be an absolute live wire threat of a back three. You've got Giles on the one side, Hopkins on the other, Houston at full back. I'm not saying that's their best back three, but it certainly just shows the pathway in sort of full flow and sort of who's coming through.
Okay. The other name I think needs to be coming, and he hasn't been with Swansea all season, but there's been a good reason for that. Cam Jones, loose head prop. There's a lot of potential in this boy.
There's a lot
of people rate him.
I think there's a high ceiling there, isn't it?
So I don't think he's been with the Dragons these last few months, but he hasn't been appearing for Swansea either. So do we know if
the Dragons? Do you mean the Ospreys?
Oh, he went on loan, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, I must have.
He went on loan.
Apologies, then.
Went on loan mid-season.
But
he's looked a talent. He has looked really
He's got
good.
all the tools, hasn't he? He's a massive lump of a boy.
Oh, yes. I do think
he's still young as well. He's 20, 21?
I'm not going to answer that right now.
Yeah, he's a youngster anyway, yeah.
He is a kid. So, I do expect to see him in the SRC, whether or not that's with Swansea or perhaps a different team next season. Who knows? But yeah, I would imagine he's going to be more involved in that first team environment, probably potentially fourth choice. I'm not sure of the loose head stocks at the Ospreys, but maybe get in maybe one or two appearances through the season might be good for the lad.
23. That's not too bad.
That's about right age for a prop to start breaking through.
Well, what he's played 6 games.
There we go.
Again, we're talking about Cornelius. So I was saying about how he's improved the last few months. Isn't it funny when these boys get game time and they get to play week on week? They seem to get better, don't they? It's crazy when you just give these boys game time and let them play rugby. They seem to get better.
And this is weird that there's a false notion, right, around the Super Rugby Cymru, and it was always the same with the Premiership, and that it's the hardened supporters of clubs, but they don't pay attention to what the league does around them too much. And it's always that case of people see Houston, and I heard it when he was playing against Ebervale that they're dropping these Ospreys boys in is wrong, it shouldn't take place. And you're thinking he hasn't been dropped in, he's been with them all season, he's got a good amount of appearances for him. And this is the entire sort of focal point. You can't expect £105,000 funding match if these boys can't be sort of playing.
Yeah, it's like this is my take, no one else's, but I think you should be having a 35-man squad, including the academy players, and obviously injuries and that happen. You can go outside that when in those cases and those extenuating circumstances. But as a core, you should be having a 35-man squad with those academy boys, and should be.
The academy boys, I think most teams probably sit between 32 and 35 plus the academy on top. Yeah. I think realistically in the modern game and with the Six Nations and stuff like that, by the time you take into injuries or call-ups to academy sort of players, you're probably realistically looking, you want somewhere between, it sounds ridiculous, but 45 and 50 players on your radar, right? Because by the time you take into consideration those that you may be priming up for a season or two's time, you take away those players who are sort of injured or sort of on sort of senior professional duty, or the academy allocation is sort of varying if they're on sort of Six Nations, etc. It's surprising what you need. I mean, if you want to run a training session, that's you need
3 front rows at least, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's surprising what you need. You need 30 players just to do a full training session, right? It's surprising what you need there, and obviously, as you said, John, some of those you're going to have three people in a jersey, especially in crucial spots, and sort of balance it round. So I mean, by the time you add in any sort of senior players, you probably say everyone averages 5 academy allocations. That'll take them to 40. Most sides will probably bounce around the 42 player mark this season, I suspect. 42 to 45, depending on sort of what your allocation looks like.
Okay, now this is something I am actually trying to do, but my only issue is trying to get an accurate read on substitutes used, because you will see some boys popping up for, like, during the cup run. We saw loads of random names that we hadn't seen before. Obviously, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, first season really with Tubbs. So that's something I'm trying to work with. And when I say 35, I mean 35 active players, not 35 and you cut off. You every, I don't know, every two weeks you got to register who your 35 are, etc., etc. Just before someone has a pop at me for saying 35 is not enough. I just meant active registered players who are allowed to play, and that can change as time goes. So
we all know you like having a pop, Bridgend being a valley and all that, Martin. Upsetting people this week.
I try to do a little bit of free advertising. They got Ogmore. That's definitely us. That's a valley. Everyone's got a valley. Come on, should have got a valley, for Christ's sake. Just take the free advertising where it comes.
We got one. Avon Valley.
Happy days. See, everyone got one except the North. Back of the North. Only joking. I'm only saying that because we're coming on to RGC against the mighty Quins, and I'm not ashamed to say I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I live a little bit too far afield to get to North Wales, but I followed this game during my kids' swimming lessons, and honest to God, Louis Rees tri-filtered through Quins go 5-0 up. I let out a rather innocuous sound which drew everybody's attention to me. So a pool with something like 15, under 9-year-old kids just turn along with all the parents around at me like, oh, okay.
Mark's going,
I won't do that again. I won't do that again. No, for Quins to go up to RGC and pick up a win. Picking up a win to RGC hasn't come easy to many teams, especially with the way that RGC do play at home on that fast track. They do run in tries of fun. I love the fact that it was a win. Obviously, love Quins, but I love the fact even more that they kept RGC to 12 points and 2 tries.
That's the big one. That's impressive.
That's unreal to see. I don't think that's even close to happening for RGC at home this season. So 5-0 at half time. RGC did come back into it. They got a try through Charlie Probert, however you say it, 7-5, and then Quinn just picked up another 2 tries. A lovely little try from number 10, Evan Davis. Just picking off the ruck spot, and a true number 9's try, really. But at number 10 is back. He just sniped straight through one over the line, and then a nice strong Carmarthenshire maul to really push that final try over. So 15-12 it finished, and it was gut-wrenching. Like, I would imagine it's gut-wrenching for the boys that were watching the game live, the fans that were up there. But honestly, I was glued to my phone waiting for that final whistle to come, because you look at the timings on when they posted it and what they said, what minute it was, etc., and you're thinking, it's got to be over by now. And then see, oh no, a tries just come through for RGC. Oh crap, what's going on? So John, you managed to speak first last time, so I'm going to come to Rob first this time. So how are you feeling, and what do you think about this result?
Yeah, well, RGC, as we said, their lowest tally scoring at home this season was 19 in the loss to Bridgend. So that was in itself a really remarkable stat out of this game, because it's not just that that's the lowest they've scored. They've regularly gone above 35 on sort of a handful of occasions. So you've got someone like Billy McBride, who's been running the show. He's over 200 points. They're looking good. Quins have been a bit sort of up and down, maybe a little bit recently. So we don't really know what sort of aspect of them is sort of running. And like I said, it's a difficult fixture for them to sort of combat. You would think that RGC would get into them and play their fast, open, expansive game, but in fact, it's turned out sort of the opposite. Quins have sort of brought them down to that slow power game, and it hasn't suited RGC at all. I mean, they basically score with next to no time on sort of the clock to get back into it. But yeah, that's a massive result for Quins because, as you said, this was an upset, really. I mean, going away from home alone, obviously, finishing below them in the table, they'd had less wins than RGC this season. It's everything was going against them. It wasn't a full strength Quinn side. There were a few individuals missing as well, which I know Steph Phillips has been mentioning to us quite a few times over the last couple of pods, and it's one of those sort of results where you go, that really surprised me actually because of the control. RGC have pulled teams into the performances this season. Quins did exactly that to them.
Yeah. John, over to you for this one.
Yeah, as Robert said, I was just amazed by the score when I saw it because you don't see such a low scoring game up in RGC this season. They run in tries for fun. I think it is an upset. Quins going up there and coming away with a win because RGC do so well at home on that fast track, and I thought that ability to score so many points at home and so many tries would be the difference then. So respect to the Quins defence, the effort that they must have put in this game to keep RGC to 2 tries and nothing in the first half, and then 2 tries in the second half and only 12 points because RGC are coming off the back of a big win the week before against Aberafon, where again they scored. I can't remember how many tries it was, but they've 58 points they've scored against us, I think. But they should have been going into this all ready to go, and they should have had too much behind to deal with Quins. But fair play to Quins. I mean that's some effort because like Rob said, 19 points was the only other, was the second lowest score after that, and that was an anomaly a bit. You just don't just RGC just score points at home.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing win for Quins. I mean, I feel they started the season so well, Quins, and we were so impressed with them at the start of the season, and then it just completely trailed off for about 4 months. But they've started to find some form then towards the last couple of games of the season. And this is massive. This might be the result of the season, I think, just in the manner that it's gone, because we've had so many high-scoring games in the league this season. It's nice to see a nice, gritty arm wrestle, low-scoring, tense game. Yeah. And amazing. That's a fantastic result for Quins, and really pleased for him, because that I would not have expected that. 1, to go up and win, 2, to only concede 12 points up there. So it's a fantastic effort, and fair play to him.
Yeah. So I think we've really had 2 playoffs, opposite ends, just as tight. It is tremendous. Like, we were all really skeptical of this wildcard round, but it has produced two amazing games, and I don't think you can knock that. Whether or not we agree with the full team playoff, which I'm probably thinking none of us really do, it's given us this week to really admire 2 fantastic games of rugby. Now, just as we just did with Swansea, few players in RGC squad. It's always awkward with RGC when you talk about players really moving up because they have a direct pathway. They have the RGC pathway. RGC really is the end goal for their pathway as such. But a couple of boys that may or may not be there next season, and they haven't featured a great deal. We got Dylan Alford, who's played maybe 4 times. He's already on a senior contract with the Scarlets, and then another lock in Tom Cottle, who has played the last 2 games, and he will be signing up with Cardiff over the summer if he hasn't already done so. So those are probably the 2 major boys that may or may not be involved with RGC next season. If they're not involved with RGC, we highly expect them to be in a different SRC club, given their age. They're both in that under-20s category. A player that I don't know if he's sort of gone under the radar. He's been involved in almost every game. Is Francis Roberts, the flanker. every time I've we get the highlights. We don't get full games, unfortunately, but we see the highlights, and I see Francis Roberts making a nuisance of himself, more or less, all the time. He seems to have such a really good work rate. He's a young lad himself. I do think he's one that's got some potential up here. Other than the golden oldies, I shouldn't really be saying that, but Billy McBride, etc., Danny Cross. Who else up in that RGC do we see as having a fair bit of potential?
Do you know what it is? It's one of those ones, and it's interesting you've picked into a back row slot because I feel their back row's been a bit unbalanced. I mean, they've had obviously Dan Owen, and he's sort of trading between that sort of hybrid, I guess, of he has that sort of smash mouth style of a 6. He has the sort of the versatility, the breakdown disruption of a 7. I mean, they've had Fackrell, who's been in and out of injury the past 2 seasons, and that's really disrupted, I think, the sort of settled nature. But as you said, I think for me, it's someone like, Sam Stoddard out wide that you're going to have to, keep an eye on. Bags of tries to start the season, missed a lot of action more towards the end of the season, but someone like that doesn't come around. If you can stay fit for a full season, you could be looking 12, 13 sort of tries, and all of a sudden that's where RGC start converting these sort of opportunities. They had 7 wins. It was more than 4 of the teams in the sort of the league. They just couldn't get the bonus points. They couldn't pick up things on the road. They couldn't pick up the win here. So it's just that bit more of experienced sort of pick out the sort of the danger men sort of, I guess, and then sort of it's how obviously every season they retain their players. Obviously the RGC Academy is is like 20 players every game sort of thing is linked to that. But it's whether they lose people to Sale if they're any good, or do they start going to places like Doncaster and sort of all of those sort of places have typically picked up players. Obviously, Danny Cross has come back from Hong Kong now for this season, so it's always an interesting one with RGC because the retention plan is massive when they have good players, but also to see sort of who they pick up locally, from sort of places like Colwyn Bay, because it's always one of those. You've got a small talent pool of rugby players up north, so you've got to really utilise what's available.
Yeah, John, anyone eye out for you, or have we covered all of them, my friend?
I think Billy McBride's been.
I just said no.
Huh?
I just said no to Billy. He's had his time. He probably should have had more than what he has, mind. But yeah.
Well, it's just from reading all the match reports at the end every week. It's just see his name so often. So and when
he's the kicker.
I know, but that doesn't always mean a great deal this season. I think few teams could do with kind of really done with having a kicker like that this season.
Okay, so I'm gonna say we're at the halfway point. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening and just giving up your free time to listen to us ramble on about some utter crap on a lot of occasions. So please like, share, subscribe, invite a friend, share our crap with them. I'm sure they will enjoy it as much as you do. So we are at the quarterfinal stage. It is win or bust, as it was in the wildcard round. It is win or bust, and I'm going to start just where we left off. Quins are traveling again, this time to Ebbw Vale. Managed to catch up with both coaches, so nice and quick this time. So Steph Thomas of the Quins. Saturday was a performance that oozed character. Headed up north with a string of injuries and beat RGC in their own patch. Delighted with the response from the young team. Head into Ebbw this week with a big underdog tag. Once again, but we're going to really feed off the confidence of this last week as we go looking to make our mark again and create another upset. Jason Strange. This was when the game was meant to be played on the Sunday, so I did ask the question, but I said, the day on when we play certainly won't affect our 23 squad. Enjoyed a well-earned break last week after playing 3 games in 6 days. That's just crazy, as it was, which was crazy. But once again, the squad showed great resilience and spirit, which is never in doubt. The players will be re-energized and ready to attack the final block of the season. We will hopefully see a number of injured players return in time for this weekend, which is a real positive. So, Rob, which of the injured players do you think he could be referring to?
Well, you've got Ryan Gardner's going to be back from HIA. I think this is actually it'll be week 4 by the time this Saturday comes around. So you would imagine he will be back in contention. You've got players, Ian Evans has been sort of back training, sort of he's going to be one of those that they're going to be looking at to add a bit more versatility around the squads. Both Curtis Gregory, Dylan Bartlett missed out the Swansea game, so that's going to be key to sort of see either of those back around, especially on the set piece and the line-out calls. Grifftuff's probably the one that's going to possibly get back before the end of the season. Whether he makes it back this week or not, he's out of his cast after he did a double break in the arm against Swansea in the cup a couple of months ago. He's back doing individual training, non-contacts. He's had all his scans. I don't know. There's no insider knowledge here in terms of if there's going to be this week or whether it'll be the week after or whatever it's looking like. But you get the feeling that he's not too far off either. So there's plenty to look at. But I guess on the alternate side of that is, do the Dragons keep Harry Rees-Weldon on the wing then as well? Which is where Ryan Gardner obviously comes in a bit use. Obviously coming back at the right time there. So it's looking like a really positive end to the season here for Ebervale. Guaranteed quarter-final. If they win, they'll be at home in the semi-final as well. Nice. Yeah, boo, yeah. No one cares about your opinion, Matt. It's going to be a good occasion. Quins are a really good club, good people, a lot of mutual respect on and off the field, I think, between both parties. So it's one of those that they'll go out and target it. I think the last time they played Quins at home towards the end of the season, the penultimate home game for Ebervale, was a scrappy affair. It was the worst 40 minutes of their season in the first half, so that was something that they're going to be desperate to sort of put right. It ended up being a 6-pointer, but only because they scored 3 tries inside the last 10 minutes and absolutely pulled away from Quins. So there's going to be a few sore bodies after this one. It's going to be a physical bruising affair, that's for sure. But interestingly, it could also have some high stakes in the try scoring charts, because obviously you've got number 1 and 2 in the league, Franchi on 17 and Lewis Morgan on 15.
Yeah, that's going to be a tasty one. And Lewis Morgan was an ever-present part of the win up in RGC. Now, we heard Steph talking about the young squad and a few injuries. So the list is bigger than this, and this is only their allocated players. You got Ellis Price and Ellis Payne, who've both been playing 10. Starting and off the bench, rotating. Ocean Williams, who's been he is still under 18s, but he's been playing the last couple of months pretty excessively. Gabe McDonald, who up until the final round of the league season had only missed 1 game. Roger Lewis, who is, would be their starting 9 if he'd managed to stay fit. Obviously, Yori Baden, we've talked about a fair bit. And Isaac Young, who, he's going into next season as Scarlett's, 3rd choice. Okay, he will be travelling reserve. He's more looking very likely to pick up minutes professionally. So that, those are some very talented and, fairly useful players. So it's quite difficult for Quins, and the resolve they are showing can't be understated. Now, regardless of everything, it's going to be a Quins win, because they've learned how they know how to beat Ebervale for 70 minutes in Eugene Cross. They've decided to go up to another very difficult team to beat on their own patch, and they've gone, you know what, we're going to do it this way. We've done it. And they come back, they've learned from the experience, and now they're just going to go, an extra 10 minutes. It's not that much, is it? So obviously I'm backing Quins. John, neutral man, give us some words.
Well, I would love to agree with you on this one, Matt.
Which you do. Thank you.
But you're chatting.
I think it's going to be another. I think it'll be a little closer than many people would have predicted, actually. But the book, let's see what the bookies say. Bookies got, well, obviously Ebervale heavy favourites for this one, 1-12, 6-1 for Quins. If you want to do a handicap, that is an 18-point head start for Quins at 10-11. So the bookies think this is only going one way. I think it'll be closer than that, actually. I think the Quins are going to take so much confidence into this game now. And I always wonder with this week off, is it good to have the rest, or is it good to have played the week before and be ready to go after a really good away win. They're going to need another huge defensive performance again, going up to Ebervale because, well, no one's won up there this year. It's the Shield champions, so nobody's gone up to Ebervale and won this season. So it's going to be probably the toughest game you could have if you're Quins. But I can't see. I think Ebervale are just going to have too much in over 80 minutes. A little bit too much quality, a little bit too much power. Ebervale win for me, please.
Oh, terrible! Absolutely terrible. And I haven't asked him for his official prediction yet, but I'm pretty sure Rob is going to back Ebervale because he's kind of bound to, isn't he?
But John's probably smack on with about the point of, is it a good or bad thing that you have a week off or do you play? This is probably the only fixture of the sort of the quarterfinals where it probably actually benefited either side. Ebervale desperately needed that week off, more than anyone else in the league. But then Carmarthen are probably the side who was sort of fighting for that bit of form, getting into a few things. Yeah, they got their own injuries. They probably need the form more than they do the bit of rest. So it's actually probably teased up to be a really good game, which obviously means now it'll be an absolute shit show. It'll piss down and be 6-3. To Ebervale, of course.
To Ebervale, of course not. Okay, on to our next game. And we're going to head over to Johnland. So Aberavon travelling to Newport. Jason Hyatt,
you can get your own back now.
Yeah. Jason Hyatt, a man of very few words. Everyone's extremely excited and looking forward to the quarterfinal playoff. We are now at the knockout stage of the competition, and we will thoroughly enjoy it. No,
all 15 minutes. Sorry, John.
Oh, that was harsh. We go over to Tyrone Morrison Newport. So super excited for the weekend. He's super excited. I love to hear that.
Super rugby.
Aberavon are a team we've played a few times deep in competitions. Whether it's semi-finals or finals, we seem to play them in the big games. They're a really, really well-coached team. They got a fantastic setup down there. Jason's done great work this year, bringing some of the youth under-23s through the team. And we've seen mass progression from the start of the year to where they are now. They've upset some teams over the last couple of games, so we're very mindful of that. Looking at ourselves, we've scored lots of points and had some big results over the last 4 or 5 games. So we're looking to continue that, but on the back of that, we'll need to be at our best defensively to really stop Aberavon's exciting rugby. A really good endorsement of Aberavon rugby there from Ty. So...
That's how you know when someone's really confident they're going to win comfortably because they really talk the opposition.
And when their own coach is only talking about enjoying the experience, that's exactly what's happened. Yeah, this is going to be. I think it's going to be a fun game to see how it turns out. And Newport, even though they haven't finished in the top 2, I think we're all pretty much along the same lines that they probably are the form team going into these playoffs. They have picked up some big wins. They have looked impressive, coming into these knockouts. So that's going to be the end of my little mention on this one. So I'm going to just back Newport because I don't think you can back Aberavon unless you're blind. And more support when it's your own team, you're blind to everything. So John, why are Aberavon going to win this game? How are they going to win this game?
By scoring more points than Newport. That's how I think they're going to do it. I think they've just got to throw everything at them. I think they're not going to be. We've leaked way too many points this second half of this season. We need to get back to how good the defence was at the start of the season. We've had some close games with Newport. The first we've had a 29-19 up there, and then picked up 2 losing bonus points against them at home. So we've been in games against them. So I'm just hoping that we can get our defence working again, but you're still not going to keep Newport from scoring tries, I don't think, at home. So we just going to...
They said that about RGC.
As I was saying that then, I just thought that. So, but Newport are a step up from RGC, and that's no disrespect to RGC, but Newport are the form team, and there is a definite top 4 in this league. So I just said that to anyone, but we're going to have to just go all out attack against them, I think, because they're going to score tries, they're going to score points. So we've just got to As blunt daft as it sounds, we just got to score more points than them. We've got to score more tries than they do. Bookies reckon Newport going to win this. They've got Newport 1-6 and Aberafon 3-1. 12 points head start for Aberafon on the handicap. So not quite as big as the Quins Ebervale game. But I'm going to go Aberafon on this one. I think this is going to be the one. We've come... we've picked up a few... we've had Ebervale, we've beaten Pontypool. We just need that big away win now. So one's got to come.
It's the hat-trick of Gwent victories, John.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
We get a big away scalp every season, and we haven't had it yet, really. So this is going to be the one, I think. So I'm sticking with my boys on this one. I think we got Corey Lewis-Jenkins is going to get a hat-trick. Yeah. Ed Dunford is going to be trying everything in his bag of tricks.
Oh, yes.
The forwards are going to match up with them, I think. The scrum and set piece should be solid. So Aberafon win for me.
That's what we love to hear. You love your team. You're going to back them, even against all adversity, even when there's no reason to suggest they're actually going to win. Exactly. I love it. Rob, you've just said hat-trick of Gwent victories. I know you're wrong because, there's only going to be one, and that is Newport, sadly for John. But chat up Newport. Go on.
Yeah, Joe, we mentioned it for a few weeks now. They are that sort of form side. They've got all their players fit. They're a very physical side again up front. They seem to lose that edge a bit at the start of the season where they sort of lost Joe Peart a bit. Landman obviously suspended. Then they sort of lost Nick Thomas through injury. So it was, balancing out a few different sort of combinations. Max Williams coming in, Josh Skinner sort of really starting to make Newport look like that sort of nasty bastard side that they've sort of made a name for themselves about being this sort of past few seasons. But equally, Jack Lloyd's in the form of the season. They've got the weaponry out wide once again. They seem to be getting players fit at the right time. Johnny Morris is back and playing well. So it's really a perfect storm for Newport. I think Aberafon's best aim in this game is to just go all out attack. I don't think they match Newport physically. I think they don't. I don't see them holding Newport out to 15, 16 points. I think this is probably one of them games Aberafon have to throw absolutely everything at it and win 35-32 or something along those lines. Or hope that Newports go against their grain of form and sort of have a bit of an off day. So yeah, there's nothing other than a Newport win for me, stopping Aberafon's hat-trick of victories over the Gwent sides in the last month.
Ooh, so we've got 2-2-1s. It's going well. We're really interested in this these knockouts. So over to another Wildcard winners' adventures. Bridgend get to travel to Cardiff. Now, I give Scott Baldwin's word on that game against Swansea. Here are some, not all, just some of his words on heading to Cardiff. I think the challenge for us as a group going into Cardiff is not being at the point where we need to get something and it's more of a want. And look, I'm not saying we don't want it, but let's not be in a position where we need to score 3 tries to win the game. Let's start really well, build a score, and look to build on that as opposed to having to chase the game late on. That will be the challenge going to Cardiff. They're number 1 in the league for a reason, but they have lost twice at home this season. We've done research on those games they've lost and where we feel we can get after them and where we've probably struggled against them earlier games in the season. Not bad. Over to Mr. Fish, Dan Fish of Cardiff. Looking forward to welcoming Bridgend to the Arms Park Saturday. One-off game, so we know we have to put in a performance to come away with the result. We know the game we want to play and have got to put our stamp on the game early. We have to make the home ground advantage count. Shoot is going to be a tough encounter, as always is when you play Bridgend. So both of them talking about getting off to good starts, being nice and early. Scott Baldwin talking about, bringing that professional element in with the analysis side of things. So, Rob, I'm bouncing straight back to you.
Yeah, that's actually really unusual. So for people who are not sort of used to this level of sort of the game, the teams only train Tuesdays, Thursdays. Obviously, they'll fill in a Saturday. Obviously, they'll do their work away from sort of those physical training days, but it's very rare for these teams to focus on opponents. So that's actually a very rare thing to see at this level, where they actually spend time analysing performances in depth, as well as sort of going back on their own. I think the pitch is probably the big deciding factor here, but ultimately Bridgend's, they're playing on a nice surface anyway. They play a nice expansive game, so it probably suits them on that front. They've got some good form against some good sides, an in-form Swansea side, and obviously a top quality Llandovery side in the past couple of weeks. I think this is for Bridgend all about managing those lapses. They can't afford to start slowly. They did it against Swansea, not necessarily in terms of building up a deficit on the scoreboard, but I felt there was a bit of a slow burner. And then obviously they let Swansea get that 16-point advantage. If this gets anywhere near 16 points, Cardiff won't be relinquishing that lead. No. And I feel this game, for me, is a Cardiff win, but I think this game balances on the Cardiff backline. Do they have Steph Emmanuel, Osh and Darwin Lewis in sort of midfield? Do they have Tom Bowen available to go with Derry Cross on the wing? Do Matty Young, Harry Wild, are they both available? There's an element here of how many players get a senior call-up, are they all fit? And if they are, I don't see Bridgend matching them, because Cardiff have got the slight edge on the pack. I feel it's a bit more drilled, and I think the back row battle is going to be intense for me. We've got the Hud brothers, Sean Moore in the second row for Cardiff. You've got Alfie Llewellyn, Zach O'Driscoll getting involved. Dylan Burrows having some really good sort of games of recent as well. So there's some very interesting clashes in this game, but unfortunately for me, it's the home advantage does actually make a difference here. And it's interesting that Baldwin's actually also picking up on the fact that Cardiff have lost 2 games at home this season and how they're targeting those. It's very interesting that that's actually the focus, and sort of picking up on all of these positives. That's that positive mind frame that he's been in all season, that, in his mind and in the camp's mind, that they can still win this league. And obviously they can. They're still in it at the moment.
100%. I am with you in the final result. I am back in Cardiff as well. Mainly just because we have seen it with them this season. Once they get a sniff, they're like a shark. They get that blood and they're gone, and they are so clinical. And it doesn't really matter too much who is in that back line, because any set of outside backs they seem to put out just manage to score tries. They always do.
You think that the lineup I've just mentioned, we've not mentioned Ethan Lloyd, Jason Harries, Joe Goodchild. We've not mentioned any of those players. Elijah Evans in midfield, like, is an embarrassment of riches.
It is, and it might just be due to the fact it's only one SRC club to one professional team.
100%. It's their strategy as well, right, around what the squad looks like.
Yeah, so what we do know is that there are 20 full-time professional senior academy players for every region. They do have hybrid contracts, extended academy, university academy, etc. But there are 20 main players, and a small chunk of them will be training with the first team just because of the state of Welsh rugby. But 15, give or take, will be dispersed out into the clubs. So when those 15 are going into one, they're training and playing the same way for the pro team on their day-to-day basis, and you're going to assume they're going to be trained the same way with the rags. So it's going to be a real seamless transition for them to do that. John, pick up on this one, but
yeah, I can't really add much more to that. I think Cardiff are quality side, and they've been so impressive. As you don't finish top by accident. The bookies see it quite same way as well. It's exactly the same as the Quins ones. Actually, Cardiff are 1-12 to win this one, with Bridgend at 6-1 and a 18-point head start on the handicap. So they're seeing this as a fairly comfortable Cardiff win. I think that home advantage and that home pitch has good at forms Bridgend are starting to come into now. I still think they're a season or two away from being up where Cardiff are at the moment. And I just, like you said, it's almost embarrassing the talent that they can call upon to put in that team. And I just think they're going to have too much on the day for Bridgend. I think Bridgend could keep that a bit closer again than the handicap suggests, but I just think Cardiff have got that bit of extra quality, bit of extra stardust in the back line to make things happen. They're going to be able to control it up front as well, I think. And I just don't see how Bridgend go to the Arms Park and come away with a win from this one. So I'm gonna pick Cardiff.
Oh, our first clean sweep of the night.
Do you know what, though? I think this may be very similar to what Swansea season's been like, where Bridgend, I can see Bridgend being within a score at the hour mark, but it wouldn't surprise me if the handicap is matched at 80 minutes, but it's all off that sort of last 20 minutes, the impact off the bench, finishers making that additional difference.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, the bench is going to make a massive difference in the depth they've got.
Yeah, 100%. So that brings us on to our final game, and it will be the televised game. Actual TV. Llandovery against Pontypool, Churchbank, 5:15 p.m. on Saturday on S4C, S4C, the actual TV channel, not iPlayer, not Click, not YouTube.
Yep.
It's what we want. It's what the people want. We want it every single week. I'm looking forward to it, and to really show how great moment this is. We get to hear from Pontypool's Tom Hancock for the first time this season, and unfortunately, if things goes the way I want, it's going to be the last time as well. So we go into the game full of confidence from a good performance last time out in the league against Cardiff. We're excited by the prospect of being the underdogs, playing without pressure, away from home against the league champions of the last 2 seasons. We've nothing to lose and everything to gain. They're an experienced team bristling with talent and are very well coached. But we've pushed them close twice this season already. So we travel there with optimism and a squad hungry to prove a point. And the last coach, Eros Evans of Llandovery, Pontypool are a good team who have changed the way they play since Tom Hancock has taken over. We will need to replicate the Cardiff performance for us to get the win that we need to progress. It's all to play for. There are no easy games anymore. Every team will be at its strongest and desperate to get the win. It's great that the game is live on S4C. It gives the league the profile it needs to grow. We've got a responsibility to make the game entertaining and reflect the quality of rugby that this league desires. So no surprising, they kind of complementing each other, being as though they have been quite close recently. They were both together as recently as last season. So, Rob, I know you said this is going to be a hat trick of Gwent victories. Were you being genuine, or were you just winding us up?
No, I was on about Aberravon beating all 3 Gwent sides.
See?
No, I think this is a really tasty clash, and I'm hoping that the atmosphere is really good up at Churchbank. It's a ground that lends itself to nice weather. Not that or any side lends itself to bad weather, but they have all that outdoor space. It's all open. It's it's quiet, not busy. It's the sort of place you can grab a couple of pints and just sit in it as if it's a beer garden, right? And then on top of that, you've got two sides coming together, both playing some really good rugby. Llandovery will have a lot of faith that their Churchbank record has been superb ever, sort of to end the season. Pontypool have typically struggled on the road this year. That's been their biggest weakness, but I feel that knockout rugby games are where they sort of find themselves better. I think you look at the Cup, most of the games are relatively close, other than the Ebbw Vale game. That was the blowout, but they're sort of looking at sort of competing around those areas. I think there'll be a big pool of following. There was only 7 seats on the supporters bus. I noticed them post, I think, earlier on, so that's probably full by now as well, which is always a good sign. So, yeah, 5:15 kick-off. It should be a cracking day of rugby, and hopefully it's another great advert for the league, because as we've established the last couple of weeks, Bridgend Swansea, Bridgend Llandovery, just those 2 games alone, we could go back across the season and name all the other TV games that have been really good, but have been really close. And like I said, both the Wildcards, literally last play of the game, that the game was still on, in terms of, it could have gone either way. So hopefully we'll see that. But yeah, for me, I think Llandovery at home, they just got a bit more quality around the park, a bit more experience in these situations. And I think that's enough to see Llandovery over the line in this one, but not by much. I feel this is going to be a nail biter, and maybe the lead switches hands quite a few times in this one.
Yeah. One thing I would really like to see is a good crowd at Church Bank, and majority of the the lower amateur leagues are finished. It's just the Premiership and Championship West now going, involving teams from Carmarthenshire and West. So I'm hoping there's a few boys who've still got a bit of an appetite for some rugby, and they might make their way to Church Bank, and that would be amazing. I'm always going to back Llandovery. They did a great team. They haven't fired on all cylinders consistently this season. We have seen bits and pieces of it. I mean, they went on 11, 12 game winning run. And they didn't play great during all of that, which just shows you how good this team actually is. I mean, that loss against Ebu Vale at home, final kick of the game, 28-31, when they really were second gear, maybe third if you're being generous. So there's a lot of talent in this Llandovery team. The one interesting thing for me is what side does turn up. Now, I did carry on with... I didn't carry on. I did speak a little bit more with Euros, and he said the only absentees they've really got is Chris Long and Aaron Warren. Of course, both incredibly talented players, and probably both first 23 players, but there are enough players in and around Llandovery to cover.
And they've been out for a while, right? It's not like they've occurred 2 weeks ago and it's like, oh shit, we're gonna have to reset. I mean, Aaron out wide, they've got so many players. I mean, Clea Morgan, Jack Davis can play there. I mean, it's endless, the amount of talent they've got. I mean, Elan Phillips has played there and done well. And they're all young as well. That's the great part about all of this, is ultimately they're those young players. Harry Joel, an experienced professional, just like Aaron Moran is. He slots straight in there. You can choose your set of wingers from there, right? And we've left a few out here.
Yeah. Now, my only concern is the same concern I had at the start of the season, is what happens if there's an injury at 10. Sam Potter recently signed up with, I said recently, this, beginning of the year, signed up with the Dragons Academy. He's been slotting in at 10. Jack Maynard wasn't involved in that game against Bridgend, reasons we don't know. So I'm more interested to see how the 23 lines up, whether or not there will be 10 cover on the bench. George McDonald has proved quite impressive, when given the opportunity from Lee Rees. So that will be my only concern, as it has been all season for Llandovery, and thankfully it hasn't come to fruition. So, John, is it going to be a hat-trick of Drovers?
Oh, tell you what, this is the one that I'm the most indecisive on.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you what bookies are first, because I'm still going back and forth, so I'll give myself as much time as I can. The bookies reckon this is going to be a Llandovery win. They've got Llandovery favourites 1-4, with 5-2 for Pontypool, with a 10-point head start on the handicap. So it's the closest the bookies think out of all the 4 games. And I think they're right in that sense, that it's going to be the closest one. I think even closer than 10 points. I want to say Pontypool, I really do, because they've been outstanding this season, and I think not that Llandovery wouldn't don't want it, obviously, but I think Pontypool might want this a little bit. Maybe not want it more, but I think it'll mean more to Pontypool and their supporters if they can get
they got that
this win.
Fire in their belly,
I think they really want this because they want to be in semi-finals, finals, and winning things. Like they want to be mixing it with these top 4 sides. At Llandovery though that's where I'm struggling. Llandovery know how to win knockout games. They've been doing it for 3 seasons straight now. If they're not winning playoff finals, they're winning cup finals. So they know what to do. I think this could be match of the weekend, mind. I think this is going to be a fantastic one. I think it's the perfect one to put on S4C. I think this is going to be an absolute banger. And I think it's going to come down to one score and it'll be late on. But I think it's going to be Llandovery who are going to nick it just with their experience in these kind of games. They're going for their 3rd title in a row. They've won the cup already this season at Churchbank. So I just think it's that experience, that knowing how to win playoff games is going to swing it. But this is going to be a cracker, I think. I'm looking forward to trying to get home quickly to catch this one after the Aberafan Newport game. So, yeah, Llandovery to sneak it. No, because I'm not drinking because the missus is due in, it'll be 5 weeks. So I'm on red alert just in case. So no drinking. Got to drive up just in case I get the phone call that says, get home, we need to take me to hospital. In fact, I've got a list of great taxi drivers that she can ring mine, but no.
How about this? You're allowed one if Aberafan are winning on the 60th. I'm sure you can get a pint down here before the final whistle then.
I know, and they've got a bus on this weekend as well. Typical. They have another bus all season, and they've got one now for this. For the new game.
Terrible.
Could have been a wonderful thing.
Is what it is. Only the true fans go on the bus.
But that might bode well for me though. The one day I can't drink when I'm watching Aberafan, and maybe one day I can't celebrate a win.
So there we go. All season long, we've had drunk John's views of Aberafan. I wonder what sober John's views are going to be.
Yeah, it's sobriety and Aberafan don't go hand in hand this season, do they? Let's be honest.
Oh, that's a bad way to end the pod, but it is how we're going to end it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, boys, for joining me. We will do it all again next week as we will be down to the final 4. Just a reminder, Saturday, 5:15, Llandovery, Pontypool, Esped Rec, live, real TV, linear television. It's going to be big. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be epic. And we will talk about it all.
It's going to be super.
It will.
Super.
And before then, we'll probably get something online, an exclusive with a senior member of the Welsh Rugby Union.
Ooh. Someone who actually might be able to tell us a few things about the future of Super Rugby Cymru.
Very much so.
On that note, thank you, boys. Thank you, listeners. Share, like, subscribe, all those things. And we'll do it all again next week. Bye, everyone.
Cheers,
guys.